Hi everybody, and welcome back to the allotment. I know it has been absolutely ages since I have been here, or at least it's ages since I've been on film and been here. I've been here loads, but I have to say that 2022 has been a pretty difficult year in terms of like managing the garden, managing life and all those sorts of bits and pieces. So although I was here, I definitely did a lot less filming. I'm trying to kind of like put myself in a position where I can do a bit more this year, do a bit more filming, talk a little bit more about what's going on in the garden, and have the opportunity just to share a little bit of life here. So I thought we'd do a quick tour at the end of January so that you can have a look at what's going on, and I could give you a quick update about what I'm hoping for this year. So we are at the top of the plot by the shed. This is probably my main project for the start of the spring, which I picked up these two barrels, so need to take the lids off them and set up a guttering system off the shed so that I can actually get some water, which would be great. I had herbs in this bed this year. This is some sorrel, which when I tidy up it will probably come back and be looking okay. I think I had potatoes and ochre in these two beds. Unfortunately, all of my ochre died in the frost. I didn't take them out before it snowed, and I just ended up with mush, which was very, very dissatisfying, but those things happen, don't they? So these two beds here are beds of kale, and I think purple sprouting broccoli. Oh yeah, look, there's a little purple head coming. That's so cool. So yeah, this bed and the one next to it have both just been they're just full of kales. They're not very big. I put them in quite late, but the idea is that I would have at least a few greens over sort of the early part of this year, which should be fine. There's a few more kales in here along with much grass. That is a bed of perpetual spinach, which I'm going to need to tidy up, mostly because it got frosted. So yeah, needs a bit of a clean up. I don't know if you remember, I did actually have an archway here, but it died during one of the windy days. I don't think I'm going to bother putting it back up, but I do need to top up all of these beds with compost. But I have found some wonderful things that I wasn't expecting. Along this path, there are loads of new shoots. I'm pretty sure that these are probably daffodils. When I took this plot on in March last year, they'd already gone, so I didn't know they were here. So yeah, that's fine. They're in the path, which is great, because at least they're not in the way. I've got quite a few of these smaller beds, but I'm gonna put two of them together down here and two of them together up there. I don't exactly need the pathways, it's more for aesthetic reasons, but I could do with some slightly bigger beds, so I'm going to use that. Just here is my reason for hating grass paths. As you can see, the grass path has just taken over one of my beds entirely. I think, and that one, it's saved mostly because it had cardboard over the top of it. So I'm going to need to do a bit of a clean up here and get that resolved sooner rather than later. So this covered piece of ground behind me, I've had covered, I'm going to say maybe since July or August. So not very long, and I am going to leave it covered this year. Basically, this whole section is just entirely covered in mare's tail. I mean, it's like a forest of mare's tail. It is so thick. And I sort of, one side of it I did dig first and then cover, and the other side I just covered because I just got tired. I was just like, oh my gosh, this thing won't end. In fact, it's not just mare's tail, it's mare's tail and creeping elder, I'm gonna say. It's really annoying. I'm probably going to leave it covered for the rest of the year, to be honest, because I just think, you know what, I don't know that I've got the energy to fight it. And I found it was just quite depressing last year, having this thing that I just felt like I was forever battling with and never really getting anywhere with. So I'm going to leave it covered, come back to it next year, hopefully with some sort of plan of action. The only thing I am thinking about doing is adding some trees in the middle, partly because it's already covered with black plastic. So I'm like, well, actually, if I put some new trees in, then they won't get smothered by weeds while they're there. And at least I'll have something in that piece of ground. So I'm thinking about putting in an apple and a plum tree, because I have half a plot. I can't have more than 2 trees on my plot. So I've had to think really carefully about what I want to do, but I've just decided, yeah, I'll go with an apple and a plum. I really did want a pear as well, but yeah, never mind. You can't have everything, can you? I might put a pear in a pot. So I don't know. I'll have to think about that one, but that's a possibility, definitely. So here there are 4 gooseberry bushes, which I found sort of like hidden in between the raspberries. So I don't actually know if I even like gooseberries, and they were sort of in the way. So I've moved them into pots. I don't know. I'll have a think about it. I'll at least hope if they do fruit this year, I will try them and see. And if I don't like them, then we'll just give them away to someone else. That's fine. There are 2 rows of raspberries here, which I've just finished clearing out. It took me ages to get to this bottom section of the bed, to be honest. It was just so horribly overgrown that it was really off-putting. But yeah, I've got 2 rows of raspberries. We'll just see what happens with those this year. I kind of need to figure out what I'm going to do up here where the compost bins are. I think I might need to lay some slabs maybe at the front, just so that I've got something to stand on, and so that I don't have to keep coming up here and fighting with all the grasses that grow. I did also have in this raspberry patch loads of dock plants. I've pulled all but one up out by the roots because I just couldn't get it. So I'm hoping that I won't end up with loads more, but I'm definitely gonna have to keep an eye on that, since I don't want loads of perennial weeds. At the beginning of the year, I usually make this like really elaborate plan for my allotment about all the different things I'm going to grow and what it's going to look like, where I'm going to put stuff, like, you know, the new varieties that I want to try, all that kind of thing. But this year, I think I'm trying to be a bit more realistic about the amount of time that I've got, and also just about trying to focus on the things that really are really important. I do really love growing food, well, and flowers actually. I just really love growing things, but there are some things on my plot that are sort of like, I guess, the structural backbone things that I really just have to get sorted in order to have a good year. One of those is definitely the situation with the water. So I think obviously last year 2022 was blazingly hot. I actually did pretty okay despite the heat, because I'd mulched with compost or cardboard across the board on most of my beds, and so I didn't suffer too much from drought. But what I couldn't do anything about was the fact that, of course, because I hadn't collected any water on site, I was stuck with needing to use the tap that is on the site. So when they started talking obviously about like water, you know, there's a hosepipe ban here anyway, but like using less water, etc., I did have a space where I was like, oh, that's going to be a bit tricky if there's not enough water, because I don't have any other source to collect it. So that's something I really want to fix. I want to make sure that I have got enough water, and I'm probably going to think about how I might store some water. It's really rainy here in the spring, but obviously the summer is less so. But I would really like to be able to maybe think about how else I might store some water on site, rainwater anyway, so that I can use that later on. The thing that I'm really happy with is my ability to sort out making compost. So I have 3 compost bins, one of which is currently full, 1 and 2 which are ready to be emptied and put on the beds. It's probably still not quite enough compost so that I don't have to buy any at the start of each year. So this year I will probably put an extra compost bin in. I've got space anyway for a 4th one, so I'll probably add another one, and then see how I get on with just trying to keep it filled. I think one of the things that's difficult when you just have cold compost is that it means that I also have to create a separate pile for the perennial weeds, which here is mostly just great big bags of mare's tail. I mean, technically it will compost eventually, or you can put it in water and you can use it as a plant feed as well, but I don't really tend to bother with that. I just get rid of it off site usually. But I am happy that I've been able to make so much compost. It's actually been really useful. so I'm going to keep up with that. The third thing that I would really like to do is to create raised beds on the plot. So all of my beds are in ground, and that is mostly just about cost effectiveness. Wooden sided beds on an entire plot are just expensive, and like those recycled plastic ones that you can get, they're even more expensive. It's a really expensive way to start a allotment plot, and so I chose not to do that, and instead what I've got is in ground beds. Now across the board, it's fine, but it is quite a bit more work in terms of weeding the edge in particular. So as I showed you before, I've got quite a few beds where the grass on the edge just encroaches, and I cut it back and it encroaches, and it's just, yeah, it feels a bit like a battle that I'm not really winning. So I definitely won't turn all of the beds into into raised wooden beds this year, definitely not, but I am going to start that process definitely and start getting a few in slowly but surely, so that eventually I have raised beds. It does also mean that when it rains, your soil doesn't sort of fall down the sides and into the paths, which is actually a bit annoying. So yeah, and that's my other thing. So those are my three things that I want to sort out this year, really. Yeah, definitely sort out the water, get another compost heap going, so that I can hopefully by this time next year I'll have enough compost to not need to buy in extra compost for my beds. I'll still need potting compost and stuff, but that would be great. And yeah, that third thing is all about putting in new beds. So that's as far really as my planning has got. You know, I think I'm just trying to approach this whole seed sowing thing quite slowly. It's only January. Don't need to sow anything in January, and I don't ever sow stuff in January. Actually, I know, like, if you're on Instagram, like, it seems like everybody is planting stuff. I don't know, maybe they are, but for me, whenever I've planted too early in the season, all that's really happened is I've just created more work for myself, because I've had really plants that needed loads of babying rather than things that were strong and sturdy that I can just throw out and they totally manage. So, and I'm all about the throw them out, they'll totally manage sort of way of gardening. So the earliest I ever sow things is probably mid-February, and even then that would be things like tomatoes, aubergines, chili peppers, and I don't think I'm even going to grow those this year. So yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm waiting until March, giving myself some time to sort out the structural things that I want to do on the plot, and yeah, I'm just going to sort of see how it goes. So I hope you will join me this year, as I will try and be a lot better about recording something each month about what's happening at the plot and updating you on how it's going and stuff. So I will try to be better at that. But I hope you've enjoyed this video, and do like it, come back next time, and I hope you have a great day.